Okay, good morning, bows and bow ties. Um, Early day. I've been up for a while. Uh, I've been enjoying myself watching all of the discourse play out online. And so I wanted to talk about America's new Trojan horse. Is it the Trojan horse itself? Like what or rather, is it the new city of Troy? So I want to share this with you. I want to read this. I want to talk about what is a Trojan horse. Let's remind ourselves of Greek mythology, the story around the Trojan horse. And for those of you who are technical, we know what Trojan horses are, right? You know, it's like a malicious thing that you can use to infect a computer program or whatever like that, like malware or something to that effect. But let's look at what the real, just basic story of a Trojan horse is. So I'm just going to read this for a second. All right. In Greek mythology, the Trojan horse was wooden, right? And so what happened was it was used by the Greeks during the Trojan War. What they did was they took this horse and they had like these soldiers wheel this horse into the city of Troy. It was this wooden horse. I think it was like on wheels and everything like that. So then what they did was the Greeks hid soldiers in the actual wooden horse. Now, at the time, when the Greeks constructed this wooden horse, right, it was at, well, let me read my slide, and I should just read the slide versus just telling the story. So the Greeks constructed a huge wooden horse at the behest of Odysseus, right? And then they hid a select force of men inside. Now, I grabbed all of this from Wikipedia, but nevertheless, so they hid all these soldiers inside the horse, including Odysseus. So now the Greeks, they all pretended to sail away, right? Because basically the city of Troy was thinking that they got something victorious. So they pretended to sail away, and the Trojans from the city of Troy pulled the horse into the city as a victory trophy. Now keep in mind, they don't know that there's soldiers inside this Trojan horse. So then that night, the Greek force they crept out of this horse, right? They got out of the horse, opened the gates for the rest of the Greek army, which had sailed away under the cover of darkness. Or they sailed back, I'm sorry, they came back. Okay, so now all of these Greeks, they said, we're going to come back. They waited until nightfall and then they came back. So the Greeks entered and destroyed the city from within, right? So that's how they entered the war. Now, if you look on the bottom here on the slide, it says metaphorically, a Trojan horse has come to mean any trick or stratagem that causes a target to invite a foe inside or into a securely protected bastion or place. That's why your computers can get infected, right? Because you click on something, you bring it in. And then once it gets inside, it can do its thing. All right. Now I want you guys to let that one sit for a second. I'm going to read this again. Metaphorically, a Trojan horse has come to mean any trick or stratagem that causes a target to invite a foe into a securely protected bastion or place. Okay, so I'm sitting here enjoying all of the meltdowns, the crash outs that are happening right now. I am not on Twitter/X, but other people are and are reporting on it. And then you can just do a simple search and you can see some of the captions. And I've captured some here. So what I'm going to do, let me go ahead. I'm going to stop sharing this. I am going to share my window of what Vivek Ramaswamy has said. Now, hopefully you guys can see this. This is what he posted. The reason top tech companies, now, before I get into this, okay, before I get into this, I'm just going to talk about what's happening here. There's this discourse that is centered around immigrants. Now, you know, this country has a problem with immigrants, mostly of the brown variety that are to the south of us. Okay? So now they're talking about immigrants. So those who voted for the next president to take, the helm on the 20th of January, they were thinking in terms of we're going to get rid of these immigrants, these criminals, right? Because that's what all immigrants are. At least that's what they'll have you thinking. that they're murderers and all these bad people. But anyway, so they wanted all these immigrants south of the border to be dealt with. But what they, I think, failed to realize when you talk about getting rid of immigrants, it goes across the board. So now you've got Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy commenting and shading the you know what out of these supporters of the next president. And they're basically letting them know, like, you guys are the stupidest people ever. I'm just paraphrasing. They're basically taking body blows, right? Like they're letting them know, like, you're not that smart. Like the people who are really helping to push forward this country are people who are not from here. And so there's things that go with this, right? When they're using what's called H-1B visas, this is how we get a lot of our scientists, our technical people, some of our doctors, whatever. They come here into the universities, they do research for us, that type of thing. And then when they graduate, the way they can stay here or remain here in the United States is if these companies get a hold of them. And then they can actually kind of like underpay them so they can use all of that intellectual property that they have, um, all the research, all that good stuff. They hire them within the company. And then what they can do is they can manipulate how they're going to pay them. They can have them work longer hours, etc. Now, I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not saying that these are facts, okay? Everything is alleged. Allegedly. Okay? And then eventually they can stay there and maybe gain citizenship. I'm not so sure how that works, and then they continue to promote them throughout the company. So similarly for like Vivek, he's Indian, so he can have more Indians come over, do that type of thing. Now, at this point, they're basically saying like, yo, you have a culture problem here in America. I want to read this for a second, and then I'm going to circle back to the irony of some of this. Okay. So now we're going to put this up. Vivek, he says the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit, a lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college. It starts young. He bolded young. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World or Zach and Slater over Screech in Saved by the Bell or Stefan over Steve Urkel in Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. And then the tweet goes on after that. Okay. I want you to let that one sink for a second. Let that one sink in for a second. And now I'm going to also present what Elon has said. Okay. The reason I'm in America, along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong, is because of H-1B. Take a big step back and F yourself in the face. I will go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend. I want y'all to let that one sink in for a second. Now, I just read Vivek's, right? I just read his. And for the one person that's watching right now, I'll let you go back on the replay and you can see that. And there's Elon's. I just posted what a Trojan horse is, right? Let me stop this. Now, I want to let y'all let that sink in. Think about how this is a big FU to the MAGA supporters. They wanted, hey, get those immigrants gone. Get rid of DEI. We don't like DEI. We don't want diversity, equity, and inclusion. We want people who are qualified to do the job, right? And what they're letting you know is the people who are qualified to do the job are not Americans. Imagine being outwitted, outlast, outplayed. It's almost like Survivor by the very thing that you detest. You got outwitted by immigrants. One that was African American. The irony of it all is just too good. Chef's kiss. So you've got a group of people who are like, hold up. We wanted to get rid of the immigrants. And the very people you wanted to get rid of are the ones who are running this. And they're letting you know you're not even the most qualified. You don't want DEI, but let's be clear. You want the qualified people, and yet you don't qualify. And the fact of the matter is, the people who are going to get it done are the immigrants. You want to know what's so interesting about this? And it's not like these guys are these representatives of humanity, right? These are billionaires multiple times over with egos and that type of thing. At the end of the day, they're pushing an oligarchy, which is ran by a few and the state is going to basically succumb to the businesses. You're going to actually succumb to the state, really. The state ran by a few wealthy people. You're going to step and fetch to the likes of these billionaires. Let's be clear. This is going to be a step and fetch show. You guys are going to listen to the billionaires. So now, instead of me talking, I'm going to put someone up on here. I got this from TikTok because y'all don't listen to Black people anyway. So I'm going to let you guys listen to this guy. Okay? I'm going to play this.
So if you're Indian, you probably heard about the Republican Party being in a hot mess because of our community. So I wanted to explain it if you don't really understand what's going on. First, I'm going to start about what actually happened and then talk about implications and how this is going to affect you. So I'm going to start it off in the way that we were presented all the information, so in chronological order. But basically, it starts with Elon Musk going on Twitter talking about how he's going to continue to hire people to work for him through H-1B visas. Many people who receive H-1B visas, especially those who work in computer science and computer engineering, tend to be Indian, which I'll explain why later. The Trump base gets very, very frustrated with this because of the fact that they feel like Elon Musk, who is not a US citizen, is putting non-Americans first, literally saying like America last in response to the whole America first kind of rhetoric that Trump pushes. So they feel like he's being very anti-American, but not hiring Americans to fulfill the job. Elon Musk is going back and forth with everyone to the point where Vivek Ramaswamy, who also co-sees DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, with Elon Musk, decides to join in. Essentially, Vivek Ramaswamy's main point is the idea that current American society, which is going to be fixed through President Trump, is supposedly not prepared enough to work in areas like computer science, computer engineering, in the way that Elon Musk and the way like America is going. So that's why they need to go through H-1B visas. This makes Trump supporters even more upset because Vivek, who is Indian, they feel like is just protecting other Indians, like mainland Indians, and therefore isn't actually swearing allegiance to the American people. Now, you may have two main questions. One, why H-1B visas? And two, why Indians? I'm going to start with the why Indian question first. First, there are two reasons why people will actually prioritize Indians for these computer science, computer engineering roles. And the first is political. Indians, like mainland Indians and the Indian government, tend to be very close allies with the United States because they are bonded over their dislike for China. This is a bipartisan thing. Democrats and Republicans just do not like China. And India is one of the United States' closest allies. So it makes sense that it's almost like a pre-vetted population group to hire like excellence from. And that goes to the next point. India is ginormous. It's 1 billion people. And let's say even just 10% of those people have an education with computer science and computer engineering, most likely given the extreme rates of poverty within India, but also the extreme amount of wealth in certain pockets. That causes people who have succeeded with engineering and computer science degrees to just be a lot more knowledgeable and tend to show a little bit more grit and willingness to put in that work. So now why H-1B visas and what is an H-1B visa and why does this all tie together? H-1B visas can only be acquired if a corporate sponsor sponsors you to work for them in exchange of temporary citizenship. For example, if Jane Doe from South Africa wants to work for Google after applying, and Google's like, okay, we'll hire you. You can't be a US citizen, but we'll sponsor your H-1B visa. So in exchange, you can work in the United States, but you're only tied to working with us. And that is why Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk are going to go with the H-1B visa route instead of investing into Americans, because at the end.
Now, did y'all catch that? So all these people think that, they're going to get rid of all these immigrants and invest in Americans. You got to remember, these are billionaires. These are businessmen. You think they care about Americans or anybody? They care about winning. They care about their businesses. Let that one sink in. All these people who voted for these people got hoodwinked.
Today, they are capitalists. They are people who are there to generate revenue and care only about their bottom line. So
just shout out to I don't know why I love this mug, my Canadian mug from when we went to Canada a few years ago. I love this mug. Sorry, I digress.
You have H-1B visa employees, there's more wiggle room when it comes to like working with them. Again, H-1B visa employees are not illegal immigrants. You cannot pay them under the table. But the thing with H-1B visa employees, let's say,
hey, remember, they're not illegal immigrants. They're not illegal immigrants. They are not illegal immigrants.
Market this place of like, it's a Silicon Valley like tech startup or whatever, and they have a slide that like connects the third floor to first floor. You have a froyo machine, you have all these nice things, but your boss is telling you to work 14-hour days and stuff. Maybe you have to come in on every single weekend.
Now keep in mind, I want you to catch that. These people who are here on H-1B visas, I'm not saying it's everybody, but their livelihood here is contingent on them being tied to that company. So there is no reason for these companies to make their work conditions better. And I'm not saying that they're bad, but I am saying that it is entirely possible that they feel pressure to work 14-hour weeks and not necessarily be paid at the top of the pay scale, right? They have a living wage. They work really hard. They don't have to be paid at the top of the scale. Why would they do that? Because they know that if they balk too much, and I'm just guessing, maybe it's time for their H-1B visa to be revoked. They can always just get another one. I don't know.
But the thing is, though, your citizenship within like the US is tied directly to your job.
Let that one sink in. Your citizenship within the US is tied to your job. That's it. So why would they want to invest in bringing Americans up to speed, Americans up to the standard, Americans up to that quality standard, right? Because Americans are going to be like, hey, you better pay me. They're going to say, pay me. They can go get an H-1B visa applicant who is qualified and pay them less. And the work ethic is quite high.
You can't really just leave and be like, peace out. Let's say like someone who's American born, and Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy understand that, and they know it's like a double-edged sword. Like, yeah, they're like not going to choose to hire Americans, but they can hire more people they can technically kind of exploit. I will preface this by saying though, there is no right or wrong people in any of this. There are claims with a little bit of validity in both arguments. This idea of not putting Americans first, this idea of they're only doing it for capital and stuff. The idea of maybe the current American population is just not prepared for like certain STEM roles and stuff. But at the end of the day, everyone here is just wrong. There is just so much racism fueling all of this like heat and stuff. And I think it just goes to show the current role Indians play within the current Republican Party of just, they are just the tools to get to the ends of certain things.
I want you guys to think about that for a second. And we've seen this happen time and time again. I want to actually point out the model minority or minorities, right? We saw how the Asians played themselves thinking like, oh, we want to get rid of affirmative action. And now they're all crying because they're like, oh my goodness, our enrollment is less at these universities. You got the Indians who thought that they were one of them, right? Like, if we're just quiet and we come here and do our job, and I'm like, you're a pawn too. You're a pawn too. You got those who are the Muslims and the Arabs. They want help with the Gaza um, Israeli conflict. You thought that the Americans were going to side and for you? You think they're going to care that much? I'm just saying, collectively, from a policy standpoint and everything. And then they saw what happened, right? You saw what happened, how they feel like y'all turned on us. We helped you get elected. We helped you get rid of affirmative action. We helped you get elected here. And now the very same people that helped them get elected from a model minority immigrant standpoint, oh, H-1B visas may be gone. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We got those in the south part of the United States saying, well, they're not talking about us as Latinos and Hispanics. They're talking about those criminals over there. And they didn't realize that they can deport abuela, and they can that means grandmother. They can deport the kids too, even if they were born here or not. They're looking into how to revoke that too.
And I would just be very careful when you come to the conversation of representational like diversity within government and politics.
All right. So let me get out of that here. Okay. So basically, I would say I just wrote like a couple of notes down. I think that Elon claims he represented free speech. Yet, as soon as he had the opportunity to get control of everything, especially because a lot of people were using Twitter, now renamed to X, as a vehicle for their voice. The very free speech that he claims to support, he has used that same app as a tool for silencing. He has already silenced MAGA people like Laura Loomer and I can't remember who else. The very same things that he says he promotes, he uses against. Because once that Trojan horse got into the city of Troy, once he bought the election, allegedly, once he got in, think about it. Now, like, he owns Twitter. He controls that. He silences people. He silences the liberal left, the psycho MAGA right. Let me say something else. The MAGA movement really ushered in oligarchy. They thought that they were ushering in someone that was pro-America, someone who was anti-immigrant, stuff like that. But what the Trojan horse was it ushered in the rule by very few rich. And the state is actually going to jump and step and fetch to the rule of a few billionaires. I want you to let that one sink in for a second. So I think that you got people like Vivek and Elon leveraging the anger of the poor, right? The anger of the poor was being leveraged so that they can speak to their hearts. And then once they got what they wanted, look what's happening with the healthcare, right? Once he was able to get in, he could usher in his own ideas. Look at what's happening with, you got the people in the South, the ones, what's so interesting is that you have the very people in the South who struggle with their education are the ones who are willing to get rid of the Department of Education. And so it benefits for him to continue to keep them uneducated. Their standards don't match the rest of the United States. I want you to let that one sink in. The H-1B visas are going to bring in more immigrants, not get rid of the immigrants. What are you talking about? Let's bring this right back up. I wanna bring this back up one more time. I want this one to sink in. This is what he said. The reason I'm in America, along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong, is because of H-1B. Take a big step back and fuck yourself in the face. I will go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend. He's already sounded the war cry. He's already sounded the war cry. So that big Trojan horse, that Trojan horse is really, he used a group of people, all of them did. They used a group of people, they heard their complaints, they heard their cries, and they're like, yeah, yeah, they stoked it. They're brilliant people. They stoked it. At least brilliant for doing that, even if it was by accident. And then when they got what they wanted, they're letting you know, he says it right here, go F yourself in the face. It's like, oh, and I'm sitting here entertained. The big Trojan horses basically foster the unity, usher in people, bring them into the belly of the beast. And then what you're going to do is further promote what you really want. It was the big switcheroo, the big okey doke. Look, don't be mad at me. I'm not even liberal. I'm just not hard conservative, right? I don't know what to tell y'all. What do you mean? And it's going to get better. I have been sitting here resting. I am truly in my rest era. I am watching this all unfold. Like I said, all of you got used. All of you. All of you who wanted to separate yourselves from those bad immigrants, they want you gone. They'll get rid of y'all. Your grandmama, the children who were born here, they'll find a way. Well, I don't know. We'll see what happens. All the people who wanted help for that Gaza-Israeli conflict, see what that has gotten you? I'm not wishing this on anybody, way. I'm not taking pleasure in that. That's schadenfreude, right? That's kind of messed up. For those of you, do I have that on here? I think I used to keep that on here with a schadenfreude. Do I keep that on here? Oh yeah, schadenfreude. Pleasure derived by someone from another person's misfortune. Now, I'm not taking pleasure in that, but I'm just saying. The Gaza conflict. The Asians were sitting there wanting to get rid of affirmative action. Now they're claiming that they can't get access to these elite universities. Their numbers are dwindling. Just letting that one sink in. And now the Indians thought that because they had money, and that was going to gain them curry favor, right? Let me tell you something. America is something else. This is still my country. I know we have issues here. I still proudly claim to be an American, messed up and all. I know a lot of people are saying this ain't my country. This is mine, right? This is still my country. I know it's a jacked up country. It is what it is. Hopefully we could try to fix it. But I am under no illusions of certain things too. That's why I'm not too caught up in all the whole, like, we got to come together, women's marches and stuff like that. Nope. We know what that looks like. As soon as you help one group of people, the rest of everyone else is cast aside. I don't do that anymore. I don't do anything. You know what I do? I sit here and drink my coffee in my Canadian mug. Now, what I'm going to do is when I get off of this, I'm going to go ahead and review something that my daughter was working on for Girl Scouts. She's working on her silver award. But anyway, that's pretty much it for me. I see the one person who came in late. You're going to have to catch the replay unless you have any comments. Do you have any comments? Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. But I hope you guys enjoyed this one because I enjoyed making it. go ahead and subscribe. Leave a comment.